You're watching Fishing in Germany, and in this video, this is a second segment of beginners pike fishing, where I want to go over fishing with lures. Just a kind of a quick crash course on fishing for pike with lures. There's a lot of different types of lures to use. I don't have them all here, but I have a few examples. We have our soft baits with a jig head hook. Of course, these come in different sizes. This is a pretty big one, but not too big for a pike by any means. Some smaller ones. What size are these? Does it even say? I don't see it on here. But I've had a lot of luck with these. We have our Rapala type lures. Poppers. Poppers you always see at the front. They have that distinct shape. And some have rattles inside. These are floating lures. And another good one are spoons. We also have crankbaits, jerk baits, the segmented ones, all sorts of different types that I don't have them all here. When using a lure for pike fishing, a really essential piece of equipment is a wire leader. And I actually picked these up from China for dirt cheap, and I've had no problems with them. They've been fine so far. There were 3 different sizes in here, and it was just a couple bucks for like 100 of them, so not a bad price. That's essential because, as I said in the first video, the teeth on a pike can bite right through your line, even braided line. It's no problem. If you see even on a jawbone from a small pike, they have some teeth on them and they will cut through the line, most likely. You're very lucky if you caught one and you didn't have a wire leader on it and it didn't bite through the line. All right, so one of my favorites I've had the most luck with are the soft baits. And I mean, you can get all different colors. The colors are going to be, you got to try it. If something's not working, switch it out. Also, depending on the water. I found what kind of got me started with these is I'd see also a lot where I go, a lot of lures stuck in the trees sometimes. And a lot of them were this bright orange color. And that stands out in the green, murky river water I'm fishing in. So I think that helps because pike, I believe, are much more of a visual predator as opposed to scent. So all these can work. There's no right or wrong. There's no exact science to it. You got to try it out, trial and error. But all these will give you a chance to catch a pike. When fishing with different types of lures, like if I'm using like a jig head on a soft bait like this guy, generally I usually what I'll do is fan out. That's normal. When I'm trying to find a location for pike, I try to stay mobile too. I'll go into that in a minute. But the way I reel in, the way I retrieve the lure, I'm gonna make a few variations. Try it fast, try it slow. Also, just keep the line right in front of you where you can see in the water and see the lure, and move it and just see which speed it needs to get that tail action going and how it reacts. A lot of times I'll try to bounce it along the bottom and give it a few seconds, couple turns, and let it sit, pop it up, let it sink down. And I'm going to kind of scan not only the area but different depths that way. So I mean, what I found works really good is initially just to like try to find where they're at. So I'm going to look at these locations where I see like, oh, there's a tree that's going into the water. Try to get as close as I can to there without snagging. Unfortunately, a lot of the spots where you're going to find the pike are also spots that are easy to snag in. But I'll give these a try. And once I feel something going on there, then I know, okay, this is the spot to stick to. If I feel nothing after, I'd say like 6, 8, 10 casts, I'll move on. And I'll just kind of walk around that way. I prefer doing that method instead of just throwing a dead bait out there, unless I'm using a float, which I'll do separate videos on. And this way I can kind of just scan the area to see if there's anything even in that spot I'm fishing. For something like, that's another thing is test the depths, because that will change according to air pressure, to temperature, to where you're fishing, etc. Sometimes a top lure will do it. So with a popper, they're going to float at the top, and you just keep giving it quick snaps. You want to make it splash around a lot like a wounded fish in the water. We have other lures that look like frogs, like rats, like ducks. There's a lot of these Savage Gear lures I see a lot of people using. I've never used one. They're pretty pricey, and as I've mentioned in the past, where I fish, it's very easy to get snagged. So I really don't want to spend more than €5 on a lure. Even then, it's going to be like, I'll probably lose it. Most of them, if I use them long enough, I end up losing them on a snag. I'll experiment with how I retrieve the lure. Like I said, I'll try fast, I'll try slow. I've had a lot of times where as I'm right where I'm reeling in and I'm by the bank, I see a pike trailing after it. Usually if you find where they're at and you can aggravate them enough, though, you'll get them to bite. And a lot of times with a soft bait, you'll see the bite marks on it. It's not uncommon at all. Another good trick, especially when you're trying to just find a spot, and if you're using lures, is try to be very mobile. So I'm going to pack really light. My essentials I really need are my pole, of course, my net, a knife, and a club to dispatch it if I'm going to keep it, and a small kit of tackle. So a few lures or something, and a few of these leaders. Anything that if I get a snag, I can just quickly replace. That way I can move around as much as I want. I can keep walking up and down that river and trying different spots to try to locate where those pike are at. There's no exact science to it, so that's one of the best tactics I found, is just move around a lot. Once you found a spot that's good, then you can hang out there. And usually I'll do that, and when I find that spot that seems okay, then if I have a lot of gear I'm bringing with me, then I'll go unpack it and take it to that spot I'm at. Looking for areas where there's a lot of bait fish, etc. That's all that stuff kind of attracts pike. One method I haven't tried that I want to try that's going to be with dead baiting, however, but is using a method feeder and a dead bait. Method feeder we're usually using for carp or chub or bream or something like that. But my theory is that's going to attract those fish feeding, and the pike see these other fish feeding, and they come around. Usually when there's kind of a fish feeding frenzy, it attracts. There's a tension going on. It's making vibrations in the water, and I think the predator fish know something's going on there, and they'll go to investigate. But yeah, that's the thing. As I say, pike are really more of a visual hunter. If the color, the things like that, you want to experiment with it for the time of day, for the conditions of the water, how clear it is. I usually found two things I thought that work good. One is something that stands out good if the water is very murky or muddy, so a brighter color like orange. And also stuff that looks like their food that they're eating. So if there's a lot of roach there, find a lure that looks like a roach, or perch, anything like that. That's going to be their natural food, and makes sense to me that that's something they would easily go after. But everyone knows pike are generally a very aggressive species. So usually if you know there's one there and you keep throwing a lure out in front of it, when you start moving it right, you're most likely going to attack the lure. And that's it for this one. The next video I want to go into using dead baiting with bottom fishing and also with a float. And we'll cover that there. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to hit like and subscribe if you liked the video and you found it helpful. More to come soon.